All right, Keyshawn Davis just made one of the most controversial decisions of his young career, right? I mean, he had a guaranteed opportunity to fight Devin Haney. Not just fight Devin Haney, but fight him for the WBO welterweight championship. I mean, the fight went through the mandatory process, right? It went to purse bid. Top rank put up $8.55 million, some big money. Devin Haney as champion was entitled to 75%. That's roughly $6.41 million. Keyshawn Davis as the mandatory challenger was entitled to 25%. That's roughly $2.14 million, right? And Keyshawn said, no thank you. So naturally, boxing fans are asking one question, and that is why? Why would an undefeated fighter who has spent years talking about wanting the biggest fights turn down a world title opportunity against one of the biggest names in American boxing? And most importantly, what happens now? Because I think this decision could have completely different consequences for Devin Haney and Keyshawn Davis, right? And so run the intro real quick. And so what actually happened, right? First, we got to separate facts from speculation. The WBO ordered Devin Haney to defend his welterweight championship against Keyshawn Davis. Eventually, the promotional fights went to purse bid. Top Rank won that bid at $8.55 million. Because Haney was the champion and Davis was a challenger, the purse was supposed to be divided 75-25. And that meant Haney would receive approximately $6.4 million and Keyshawn would receive approximately $2.1 million. That meant that the contracts were set. But Davis's team formally informed the WBO that he would not move forward with the fight. And according to reporting surrounding the decision, dissatisfaction with the financial split was the central issue. Now, here's where things get interesting, because from Keyshawn's perspective, I can understand the argument. But understanding it doesn't necessarily mean that I agree with it. And think about Keyshawn's position. He's undefeated, he's a former world champion, he's an Olympic silver medalist, he's becoming a recognizable personality. And he's probably thinking, why should Devin Haney make 3 times what I'm making when I'm the one of the reasons people are interested in this fight? And that is the business argument. Keyshawn isn't simply looking at $2.14 million and asking whether it's good money, because obviously it's good money. It's good money for me, it's good money for you, it's good money for anybody who likes money. He is asking, what percentage of the value of this event am I responsible for? Those are 2 completely different questions. If Keyshawn believes he's bringing 40 or 50% of the commercial interest, accepting 25% could feel like he's undervaluing himself. And fighters have to think beyond one payday, because once you establish what you're willing to accept, promoters and networks can use that number against you in future negotiations. So I understand the principle, but there is another side to this. This was not a normal negotiation, right? This is where I think Keyshawn's argument becomes much harder to defend, because you're not negotiating some random contender fight. You're challenging for a world championship. Devin Haney is the champion. Haney has the belt. Keyshawn is the mandatory challenger. That's why split exists. And sometimes the price of becoming the A side is accepting B side money first. You win the championship, then suddenly you're the guy getting the bigger percentage. That's how boxing careers are built, and that's why turning down $2.14 million is going to confuse people. Because Keyshawn wasn't being asked to fight Devin Haney for peanuts. He was getting paid millions of dollars for an opportunity to become welterweight champion. And if he believed he could beat Devin Haney, then the long-term value of winning could have been worth significantly more than the difference in purse money. And so the real question people are asking is, did Keyshawn think the risk was worth it, right? This is the uncomfortable part of the conversation, because fans are immediately going to say Keyshawn ducked Devin. I don't think we can definitively say that. Money disputes are real in boxing, but perception also matters. And Keyshawn has put himself in a terrible position from a perception standpoint, because when you're calling for major fights and presenting yourself as somebody willing to fight anybody, eventually people expect you to take one for the team, so to speak, right? And Devin Haney is not some unknown fighter offering you $200,000. This was a world championship opportunity worth more than $2 million. So now Keyshawn has created a question that didn't need to exist. Was this really about the money, or was the risk to reward ratio against Devin Haney simply too high for you? That's the question fans and we all are going to ask. Stylistically, Devin Haney is also the type of fighter who can make an opponent look bad, right? He's long, disciplined, understands distance. He's comfortable winning rounds without taking unnecessary risk. And perhaps most importantly, Haney has experience in major championship fights. Keyshawn is extremely talented. He's explosive, athletic, technically sharp, and I actually think the matchup would have been fascinating. Keyshawn might have had advantages in explosiveness and combination punching. Haney would have had advantages in experience, range management, and controlling the pace of championship fights. But here's the danger. Imagine Keyshawn accepts approximately $2 million and Haney outboxes him over 12 rounds. Now Keyshawn loses his undefeated record, he doesn't have the championship, and some of the aura surrounding him disappears. That's why fighters and managers talk about risk versus reward. From Keyshawn's perspective, maybe $2.14 million wasn't enough money for that risk. But there's a problem when you think like that. Eventually, every elite fighter has to take that kind of risk. And so what this does to Keyshawn Davis, right? This is where I think the decision hurts Keyshawn the most. Because not necessarily financially, reputationally. Boxing fans are already frustrated with fighters protecting undefeated records and spending years and years negotiating instead of fighting. And Keyshawn has positioned himself as somebody who wants smoke with the biggest names. When you're building that image, you eventually have to prove it. This was an opportunity to do exactly that. Beat Devin Haney, and suddenly Keyshawn Davis becomes one of the biggest young American stars in boxing. He becomes welterweight champion. His negotiating leverage skyrockets. His next contract becomes bigger. His next purse becomes bigger. Potential fights with other elite names become bigger. Even if Keyshawn believes he deserves more money now, beating Haney could have made him dramatically more money later. That's why I think he may have focused too much on the purse for this fight instead of the potential value of winning it. And so there's another reason Keyshawn is going to receive criticism because of his recent history. Remember, Keyshawn previously lost his WBO lightweight championship on the scales after missing weight by more than 4 pounds for his scheduled defense against Edwin De Los Santos. That fight ultimately did not happen. So Keyshawn already had a major opportunity disappear without actually entering the ring. Now, another major fight has fallen apart. And fair or unfair, fans are starting to recognize a pattern. One canceled fight can become a circumstance. Two major situations begin creating a narrative, and narratives are extremely difficult to reverse in boxing. Keyshawn needs his next move to be meaningful, because he cannot spend the next year fighting opponents significantly below Haney's level and expect people to forget all about this. But on the flip side, for Haney, I actually think this could help his reputation. Think about one of the biggest criticisms Devin has received throughout his career. People say he's boring, people question his drawing power, people criticize his style, but one thing is becoming increasingly difficult to criticize. Devin Haney is willing to take meaningful fights. He's fought George Kambosos twice, Lomachenko, Ryan Garcia, Brian Norman Jr., and now he was prepared to defend his welterweight championship against Keyshawn Davis. Regardless of whether you enjoy watching Haney fight, that's a respectable level of opposition, right? And now Keyshawn is the one walking away. That changes the conversation. Instead of asking, does Devin want the fight, people are asking, why doesn't Keyshawn? That's a PR victory for Devin Haney. But this isn't completely positive for Devin Haney either, because Haney needs opponents, and Keyshawn was a very marketable one, right? Two undefeated American fighters, both highly skilled, both outspoken, both connected to the lightweight and junior welterweight generation. Both still young enough that the winner could have become a major face of American boxing. That is a sellable fight. So even though Haney isn't responsible for Davis withdrawing, he's still losing an opportunity. Now the WBO has to determine what happens with the mandatory situation. And Haney may end up fighting somebody who brings significantly less attention. That's bad for momentum. So who actually lost more out of this situation? To me, it's got to be Keyshawn, and it's not close. Haney still has a championship. Haney still has his undefeated official record. Haney still has leverage. Haney still has access to major fights. Keyshawn had an opportunity to take all of that away from him, and he walked away. That's why I don't think the real loss here is the $2 million. The real loss is the opportunity. Because if you think about it, what was beating Devin Haney actually worth? Maybe $10 million in future earnings? Maybe 20? Maybe more. We don't even know. But becoming an undefeated welterweight champion by beating Devin Haney would have completely changed Keyshawn's position in boxing. So there is one scenario where Keyshawn ends up looking smart if he walks away from Haney and immediately gets a bigger fight. Maybe another championship opportunity, maybe a massive name opponent. Maybe a fight paying substantially more than $2.14 million, right? Then suddenly we look back and say, okay, now it made a little sense. Because boxing is a business, you don't have to accept every opportunity. But if you're going to turn down Devin Haney for a world championship and millions of dollars, the alternative needs to be better. And that's the standard. If Keyshawn's next opponent is significantly worse and the money isn't dramatically better, then this decision becomes almost impossible to defend. And in this situation represents something bigger than Devin Haney and Keyshawn Davis as well. This is one of boxing's biggest problems. The sport has convinced fighters that losing once can destroy their career. So instead of thinking, how do I become great? Fighters sometimes have to think, how do I protect my value? And those goals aren't always the same. Sugar Ray Leonard lost, Thomas Hearns lost, Roberto Duran lost, Muhammad Ali lost, Manny Pacquiao lost, Oscar De La Hoya lost. Floyd's undefeated record eventually made the zero incredibly valuable, but boxing took that lesson and sometimes pushed it too far. Now undefeated fighters are treated like investment properties. And when two elite fighters finally get close to fighting, everybody starts calculating whether the financial reward justifies potentially losing the zero. Fans don't care about that. We don't care about that. Nobody cares about that. Fans want the best fighters fighting the best fighters. And Haney versus Keyshawn was exactly that type of matchup. And so, just to close it all out, why did Keyshawn Davis back out? Based on the reporting right now, money appears to be the central issue. He was positioned to receive approximately $2.14 million out of an $8.55 million purse bid, while Haney would receive approximately the other $6.4. Keyshawn apparently didn't believe that arrangement made sense for him. And financially, I understand the argument. Career-wise, I think it's an enormous gamble because Keyshawn didn't simply turn down $2 million. He turned down an opportunity to beat Devin Haney, become WBO welterweight champion, remain undefeated, and potentially transform himself into one of boxing's biggest young stars. Meanwhile, Devin Haney walks away from this looking pretty good. He was prepared to defend his championship, he was getting the larger purse, and his mandatory challenger decided not to proceed. So now all the pressure shifts to Keyshawn because his next move has to answer one simple question. If Devin Haney for the WBO championship wasn't worth taking, what fight could possibly be worth taking? And until Keyshawn comes out with the answer to that question, people are going to continue to keep wondering whether this was really a business decision or whether $2.14 million simply wasn't enough money to risk finding out just how good Devin Haney really is, right? And so let me know what you think. Did Keyshawn Davis make a smart business decision by refusing a 25% split, or did he just walk away from the biggest opportunity of his career? And if they eventually make Haney versus Keyshawn anyway, who would win? Because me personally, after everything that's happened, I think boxing fans are gonna want this fight even more. And so if you like this kind of video, like, subscribe, because we just passed 100 subscribers and now we on the road to 200. Let's go.